So it is at this time with great pleasure that I introduce my downline and dear friend, Nancy Lawton Shirley.
Thank you. All right. Oh, if I get the music to boot here. All right. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to share information that I have. I love these tools. And in fact, we serve about 250 children in a given week. And we have 1 dome and 2 Chi machines. And it is a constant battle. Where's the Chi machine? I need it. Can I borrow it? Negotiation. My child needs it really bad. And so we know that these tools are really, really supportive of children with special needs. And certainly, in listening to Jeff, in talking about the general discussion of what those 2 tools do, it's real easy to imagine how it could be applied to children, can't it? But what I'm going to do in this next hour or so is to share my perspectives on working with special needs children and using these tools to help support their health. I'm going to briefly talk about specific diagnoses and how we see those children responding to the Chi machine and the dome. And then I'm also going to provide you with some little hints and tools in working with these children to help them participate for a little bit longer. Children with special needs are first children. And they may come in with a diagnosis. The diagnosis is going to give you some basic information, but it's extremely important that you look at them as who they are as little people. And if they have some challenges about how they're approaching their world, it also means that as the adults, we may need to make some adaptations to help support their participation. Lastly, I'm going to share with you the little checklist that I put together for parents to use so that we could start tracking this. We know as clinicians that these techniques work for children, but now we need to figure out how to get the numbers involved so we can really be showing that statistically it is very significant. So that's kind of our agenda. All right, what symptoms can these tools help? I'll tell you, I don't go much by diagnoses, but it'll tell you a few things, okay? Attention deficit disorder, that child clinically is going to be your daydreamer. They're going to have troubles with focus and attention. Attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity is going to have that high activity, high drive for movement added to the poor ability to pay attention and focus. Autism spectrum. Now, I only have a couple words down here. That doesn't even touch it. All right? What we know about autism spectrum is those children have a wide range of talents and skills and challenges, depending on where they're falling. If they have Asperger's, it means they're extremely bright. They're very brilliant. They have a good mind for facts. But they may have some challenges with some of the social interaction, and they may have some troubles with some more of the abstract reasoning and expression. If they have more core issues with autism, it may mean that they don't speak. They have troubles expressing. They might have troubles understanding, and definitely troubles relating to their world. All 3 of these may have troubles in responding to their environments, and they may be very hypersensitive and go into behaviors like fight and flight and fright because they're misunderstanding their world. And it's helpful for you to know that, because it's going to make a difference in how you approach them in trying to help support them in their participation. So what do we see with these diagnoses? Clinically, many of these kids have trouble sleeping. And I will tell you, almost across the board, that those children that don't sleep, once they try the Chi machine, they will sleep. I had a young man who used to take him 2 hours to get down. And even then, he wouldn't stay down, so he was getting up and down all night long. Hence, he was one tired cookie, and so were his parents. The first night of the Chi, he was able to get to sleep within 15 minutes. And he slept through the night and only got up once. And then they repeated that every night. And pretty soon, the sleep patterns totally turned around. One happy family, let me tell you. Behavioral issues will lessen. Very common that some of the behaviors that we see, that fight, flight, fright, disorganization, It settles once the child settles. And we see both the dome and the chi as very calming and setting the children up for organization. Give you a little example. Little Charlie, age 12, so he's also got hormones hitting him, all right? What was happening for him is movement was really scary and it wasn't very much fun. So he was starting to gain weight. And the more weight he gained, the less he wanted to move, the less he wanted to play, the less engaging he was. And what we found is if we could get him on the chi machine for just 5 to 10 minutes, he would settle, take a deep breath, we'd get him off the chi machine, and then he would be able to interact and engage and do all the movement activities he needed to do to help his body improve. So it was really significant. Better concentration, better coordination of their muscles, and overall calmer response to their world, whether it's academic, or whether it's the social environment, or whether it's out on the playground, or whether it's at home. Things to watch for. So you might get changes actually right while they're on the chi machine. And the kinds of things that you're going to want to pay attention to that's going to be telling you, hey, this is a really good match, is watch their face. Because all of a sudden, the face will relax. And you'll get more smiles. You may get less restlessness. You'll get more eye contact. And very commonly, you'll get more interaction. And for some of these children, that these are the big core issues, this is very significant. Anxiety and anxiety disorders. I know we've got people from all over the place, but what I'm seeing in this area is more and more children are struggling with anxiety and fear. And this is going to get in the way because they'll get distressed whenever they have to engage in something new. New activities, new people are going to trigger that fearfulness. The adults are kind of looking, what's the problem? It's just your grandma. It's okay. She loves you. But if they haven't seen grandma for a while, it's going to increase their anxiety and distress. Excessive worries, they'll anticipate disaster. They're very overwhelmed by the sensations of daily life, the touch, the movement, the experience of being in their physical body. What do we see with the chi machine in particular is significant changes in calm state. So this would be across the board when kids are distressed or having troubles responding to their world. By more flexible, I mean they're more adaptable. So instead of worrying and worrying and worrying about what's going to happen at school the next day, all of a sudden they're not even thinking about it, and then they get to school and something new happens and they go, oh, I got a substitute teacher, it's okay. Whereas before, a substitute teacher would just send them right off the deep end, either in behavior or anxiety. When you have anxiety, a lot of times you have trouble sleeping. And so very consistently, we will see the changes in sleep patterns. And again, while they're on the chi machine, look for more relaxed face. But what we see is, yes, they might be relaxed on the chi machine while they're doing it, but that does carry over. And the more consistently you can do it, the more that becomes a pattern of who they are and how they can interact. We had a little girl whose diagnosis was in anxiety disorder. And for her, eye contact was really hard. You could just see it when she would come into the room. So her eyes would go down, her eyes would avert and not look at you. Her social interaction, just engaging back and forth and talking, would be very halting. Her breath was very shallow. And we get her on the chi machine right away. And within a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, all of a sudden the face relaxes. She takes a deep breath. And all of a sudden she starts sharing how her day went. All of a sudden she starts looking at you. And she gets into a better place. And what we know from a therapeutic perspective, if a child can be calm, the rest of the world can unfold for them a lot easier, that their truest potential can actually be actualized. And that's what we saw with her. So then she could go from using the chi machine and engage socially with kids that she would look at them and run the other way previously. So very, very nice changes with that piece. Cerebral palsy. I don't know how many of you know exactly what that means. It can be one of two ways. One is that your muscles are really, really tight. So for example, if I have cerebral palsy and it's affecting my left arm, it may mean that I hold my arm like this all the time, and that just to get my arm straight is really, really challenging. I love the far infrared dome for tight muscles for children. And usually what we do is we start with the far infrared because you don't have to worry about position. Because when you have cerebral palsy, a lot of times it's very difficult to get your legs straight and to have your body straight for doing the Chi machine. So if we can start with the dome and help those muscles relax, and then we can follow it up with the Chi machine and have very good results for relaxing the muscles. I can't tell you how many children that we've worked with that have had tight muscles that from a therapy perspective were very challenging to help. And with the introduction of the far infrared dome and the Chi machine, we've seen really nice changes, functional changes. For some of these children, their muscles are so tight they're in pain. And I had a little girl that I worked with for many, many years. Her name was Lexi. And she had very, very tight muscles. And she would come into treatment many days where she would just cry because her muscles were so tight. She'd been in school all day. She'd been working hard. And the harder she used her muscles, the more tight they got. And just 5-10 minutes under the dome, her muscles would relax, her affect would change, and then we could go on to other therapy tools that would help facilitate her muscle development. Low muscle tone. That means your muscle is very soft. That means that you can hyperextend at your joints. I have low tone, so it means I can hyperextend very easily. Now, it doesn't get in the way of my function too often, but if it's on the severe end, it means that I need a little more sensory support to really get my body moving. With those types of children, you have to be careful with the dome, because if you place them in the dome and you don't have support underneath their legs, they're going to hyperextend their joint, and that's going to be very uncomfortable, and it's not going to be good for their joints. It can be helpful for them in that they will have certain tightnesses in their body that they're using to compensate for their lower tone, and so it will help normalize things for them. Okay, so the changes we see with cerebral palsy, kind of mentioned already. Improvements in the range of motion of their limbs, more relaxed muscles. Look for relaxation of their feet and less stiffness through their body. When they start off on the Chi, it could be very rigid. And then as their body relaxes to that gentle rocking, all of a sudden you'll see that fishtail movement happening, which is telling you that the muscles are starting to relax. And like I said, decreased pain of tight muscles is real common. Okay, I talked about this for the lower muscle tone. Kids need movement after if they have that lower tone. And you'll know they have the lower tone because if they're small enough that you pick them up, they kind of feel like a doughboy, right? So they're real squishy because their muscles aren't ready to work well. So it means you're going to have to wake up their muscles after using these techniques. Learning disabilities. Now, lots of learning disabilities. It can be math, it can be reading, it can be the visual perception is off. It can be that they have troubles with focus and attention, and they can have some coordination issues. So how they are looking as a child will vary depending on what's happening for them. What we see is a calmer child. If you are calmer, you're more ready to learn and you're ready to be there in the classroom and absorbing information. Many of the children are finding that learning is easier. And I think that you have in some of your literature about the fact that when you have gentle rocking and this gentle movement, it's stimulating both sides of the brain. Reading is the most bilateral thing you'll ever do in your lifetime. And so getting things moving throughout both hemispheres is real key for a child's learning ability. Many are finding concentration easier, and definitely stress is decreased. And we know that stress chemistry will get in the way of a child's readiness to be there. Down syndrome, that's in the genes. That means the child was born with that. It can affect their cognition. It can affect how they learn and the speed of their learning. It gives them very low muscle tone, so they are definitely soft and squishy when you touch their muscles. It tends to impact also on language and coordination. I am finding that many of these children are vulnerable to constipation. And the Chi machine is fabulous for changing that pattern. It also has been shown to improve alert state and, again, that calm state. So you see the common threads here. Many children with challenges, either cognitively, verbally, physically, are under a lot of chronic stress. And the stress itself gets in the way of their ability to really reach their fullest potential. Head trauma and stroke. Now, very common for head trauma and stroke for people to have tight muscles. It can affect cognition or their ability to express themselves. And it can definitely cause irritability because there's been huge changes in the brain and the body. Both the Chi and the Dome can be an amazing part of the healing process. And I think I shared one story about a young man in that DVD that was the audio recording, and how he had had a head trauma. He came into the clinic. We started doing the Chi machine, and it was huge. All of a sudden, he was able to use his muscles in a better way. His caregivers weren't having to pick him up. It would take several people to help transfer him out of his wheelchair. And more importantly than that, he got motivated, because all of a sudden, life was just a little bit easier. And when life gets a little bit easier, that's really exciting. And then all of a sudden, you've got that extra motivation to step in and go, hey, I can do this. I can use these muscles better. And so it really opened up his whole rehabilitation program. So it's a very significant tool for them. We'll see improvements in coordination, in their ability to be independent, their ability to use upper extremities or lower extremities, calm state, and improves body awareness. So they're having a better sense of what their body can do and how they can use their body. Whoops, okay. So those are basic diagnoses. Now, there may be some other diagnoses that also you wonder about. If they have distractibility and irritability, you know these techniques are going to be very good for them. But on a more core level than just a diagnostic label is physical health. And certainly when I was listening to Jeff today, he was talking about all the health benefits of both the far infrared and the Chi machine, and that certainly would apply to the children. And I've been in private practice for a long time, and I've seen a lot of kids. And what I'm seeing is more and more children are more and more ill, meaning they have more allergies, they have more digestive issues. These children are challenged, okay? I already talked about constipation, and I have to share this little aha. And this is a true story. Little Scott's talking to his little brother, and he goes, Dan, the Chi machine makes you go poop. Let's try the dog. I just had to laugh. Kids put it together very quick. Now, I needed to instruct him that might have been the wrong end of the dog, but, details. What we see with constipation is almost always within about an hour's time, there will be a bowel movement. In the very least, 24 hours. Now, the working of the bowel is really critical, and when children don't have that working for them, it means they get toxic. That's not a good thing. It's going to affect their appetite. It's going to affect their overall health. So this is an extremely important area. Pneumonia. I love the far infrared dome for this one. Usually start with that. It really helps with that fluid exchange. The Chi will help mobilize the rib cage and really help the deeper breathing. Any child that has difficulties with breathing for any reason, these two can be very powerful in helping expand the ribs and get that breathing pattern improved. When we are stressed, we will do shorter breaths. When we do shorter breaths, it makes our body and our brain stressed. And so it starts this vicious cycle. So from a therapy perspective, this is a real important benefit. Earaches. chronic ear infections. I love the dome for that. Will help it drain, help take care of infection. Circulation. They talked about how these tools can help with circulation. I had a young boy that was receiving services at the clinic, and all of a sudden, for unknown reason, he started developing swelling in his lower extremities. He clearly was having some circulation issues. The doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. And what we discovered is putting him on the Chi machine for just 5 minutes would decrease the swelling and increase the circulation in his lower extremities for up to 4 days. So very, very important for this child, because medically they didn't know what else to do because they couldn't figure out what was causing it. So what the Chi machine would do is mobilize and get those fluid exchange going. And what we know about the body is it's a self-correcting mechanism. And so you boost it up a little bit, and then the body can take it and usually maintain on its own. And I know Jeff had talked about that. Obesity. Oh, we got a problem with that with our young people. And it's multi-layer. One is that the kids aren't moving and experiencing their world as much. We've got so much of the computer and the little video games, and then we're not eating very well. And so the kids are getting a lot of fast food. Obesity is not a good health thing. But think about what Jeff was talking about earlier as far as how the Chi machine and the dome can help with decreasing that weight. And so as a weight management program, it also can be very, very helpful. We've had several different adolescent boys that we were able to get them going on exercise programs, but it really didn't work very well until we did the Chi and the dome to really get their body in a different place so that they were more interested in moving, and moving was actually more fun physically. But very important. We already talked about sleep issues and how very important that one is. I also want you to be real conscious of the detoxification piece. Our bodies have to detoxify. We have many layers in our physical body that help us do this. And what some of the studies are showing, especially for children with ADHD and in the autism spectrum, is some of them are not getting rid of toxins that they are exposed to in the environment. And so the fact that you have two machines here that will help the body detoxify very gently is quite huge, and an extremely important tool for parents to be aware of. The detoxification process is very tough on the body when you do Western medicine. My youngest son, who has danced on the edge of autism and ADHD and has dyslexia, we discovered he was toxic with mercury. And we didn't know about the far infrared dome at that time, or the Chi machine. I wish we would have, because we definitely would have used it. But Western medicine techniques were very hard on his physical body. He lost a whole academic year in that process where he just did not feel well. So this is a very nice alternative for children and families to be exploring. I also want to mention headaches. We're seeing a lot more headaches in young children. And it can be because they've got tightness in through the shoulders. It can be that their neck is real tight. It can be that they're under a chronic state of stress because the environment is demanding too much of them. But what we see is that both the Chi and the dome can decrease this tightness in through the shoulder and neck, and therefore help alleviate some of the headaches that they are having. Many children are experiencing allergies. And like Jeff had said earlier, this can really help with the body's ability to detoxify and get better balance in the immune system. Doesn't get better than that. Okay, so that's kind of my little summary about some of the challenges that some of these children have and some of the changes that we see very consistently. But there's some special considerations here when working with children that have special needs. And one piece that I can't emphasize enough, the parents need it as much as the children do. Because I can tell you, as a parent of 2 special needs children, there's a lot of stress involved. Because we're constantly having to think and be proactive and try to support our children. And the more we are relaxed, the more we can really be supportive and be a happy, functional, healthy family unit. So the parents are just as important as the children are. Now, what you need to know about special needs children is many of them don't respond well to new. And so they come into that room and they see this little machine on the floor, and that's new. So right away, the radars go up, and they're going, wait a minute, what's going on here? What are they going to make me do? And so you need to appreciate that you need to go slow. And parents need to know that as well. That it's not like you're going to be able to just say, okay, you're going to lay here, and you're going to have to lay here for 3 to 5 minutes and don't move. That's probably not going to work. And especially if you've got somebody who's nonverbal and doesn't understand the verbal directions very well, all they see is something new and something different, and they're scared. So you have to be prepared. You need patience, and you need to have compassion. And if you've got those two, and you take time to establish a relationship with the child, you'll be able to support them very, very well. A real helpful thing is if the child can see another child do it. Then it becomes kind of fun. It's like, wow, look at that. He's moving like a fish. I want to move like a fish. All right? So you got to talk kid language. You know, now's not the time to bring the science into what's happening. Or even, you can talk to the kids about, well, this might help you really focus in school, or this might help calm you. But most kids are going to be much more interested in the fact that it moves you like a fish. Okay? One of the key things is fluorescent lights are really bad for all of us. And so you need to keep this into consideration, and families that are buying this for their home program, where they're doing this is important, because all the studies are showing fluorescent lights actually cause hyperactivity. And so you're wanting this child to lay, with this dome or with the Chi machine, and you're already putting in chemistry that says move. All right? So avoid fluorescent lights. We have a lot of success using colored lights. So if you have a room that's very darkened, just going out and getting little party lights, you can get them at the grocery store a lot of times. And we have options. We have a red light, we have a blue light, a green light, and a yellow light. And the kids can choose which light they would like. And I can tell you that almost 80% of the kids calm with red. But there may be some that like the blue, or one day they like blue and one day they like red. It's okay. You can be flexible with that one. What we know is colors do affect us as human beings. And red light actually speeds up processing, and blue lights will slow it down. So depending on what the child is needing, it supports them. Now, weighted blankets. It is a tool that we have used with the Chi machine for a long time and very successfully. Not every child would need a weighted blanket, all right? But the child that is really uncomfortable in their body, the child that really needs a ton of movement, and just laying still for 3 minutes is just beyond them. Just draping a blanket that has some weight to it, 30 pounds, I'm not talking 30 pounds, about a couple of pounds. You can even make little rice bags. Fill up a sock, make it into a little your Chi machine buddy, and just that little weight placed on the chest can be enough for them to calm and feel better in their body. Pressure on the skin calms. Anybody here like massage? Yeah, it's the same principle, okay? Having something weighted on you also will give you that sense of smaller space, which can be helpful. Now, the dome a lot of times will be calming some of the kids, help some of the kids. But that weighted blanket tends to be a real key. And what you find is that you can start off with the weighted blanket. They still get the little fish motion. It's not going to be quite as big because of the weight. But as soon as the child starts getting the feel of what the Chi machine can do for them, then you don't always need to have the weighted blanket for prolonged periods of time. Probably the most tricky time is after they've done the Chi and you want them to lay there for a while, and you get that little electrical charge that starts moving up your body. Well, kids don't always understand that that's okay. And so they feel that and they're going, whoa, I got to get out of here. This just feels too weird. Okay, so the weighted blanket can be extremely helpful after the Chi machine is done as well. And then it just settles their body. They can get the benefit of laying quiet for a little bit and then move on. Okay? I think I'm using this like a mic. All right, the other tool that we use a lot is music. All of us benefit from music of different kinds. We all kind of have our music type, you know. Those of us that are a little bit too tired to clean house, but we have to do it. We've got company coming, and so we'll crank up that music with the big beat so that we can get through it. We can also decrease our stress by using music. So with the kids, we try to select music that works for them, and this is music without headphones. You never put headphones on a child if the music has bass to it. It's causing hearing damage for a lot of children. So just a heads up. My kids hate that I know this. Especially my 17-year-old. Raffi has a perfect beat. Very entertaining, very calming. That 1 beat per second is usually what's a very good match for most children. And what happens is the brain tunes into that beat and starts entraining to that beat, and that beat helps parts of the brain get into a calm state. Jen Jareb is a musician that has produced several different CDs that are specifically set up for calming. She is an occupational therapist, so she understands sensor processing, and she's done a beautiful job. And so if you're interested in that, you can get a catalog. You can call the number that's up there, 651-439-8865, and order those CDs. She doesn't pay me to do this. I just want you to know. There's another CD that's very, very helpful, especially for distressed children, and it's called Calming Rhythms. And it's drum rhythms that, again, help the brain settle into what we call alpha waves, which is calm state. This CD also, by the way, is really good for sleep patterns. So. But if you can play those while the child is doing the Chi machine or the dome, sometimes that's all they need is that background sound to help them self-regulate enough so that they can more fully participate. Oops. There's also headphone music that you can use. Classical music is okay because it's higher sound frequencies. But whenever you're providing music for children, you have to watch and see if it's working for them. Just because it works for you doesn't mean it's going to work for them. All right? So it's a very individualized thing. There are specialized music that different therapists can help you purchase that can also help with these calmer states. But you'd have to consult with an occupational therapist who's had training in those to know what those are. But I just want to mention them. Now, you need to appreciate this one. There are many children with special needs that laying on their back is a really scary thing. So what that may mean for that child is maybe you're going to have them sitting up in a chair, well supported, and just have their feet in the little Chi stirrups and rocking back and forth so that they can get the experience of that relaxation without the fear of having to place their head back and to be laying on their back. And again, the weighted blanket can be very helpful for this. I talked about this, and I'm hoping you can see this in the picture. He's got a little weighted blanket right here, and then I've got a pillow underneath his legs. And the reason we're doing that is because he has lower muscle tone. And if we don't do that, you're not giving adequate postural support for that child's legs, and it could harm the joints. And that is all the child needs in order to really get the full benefit without any risk. And remember, water, 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 water. And I want you to be aware that many, many of these children are dehydrated before they come in. And then you're going to do these techniques, or the parents are doing it at home, and they're going to get even more dehydrated. We need hydration. And so focusing on this with the parents, or if you are a clinician and people are coming to you, making sure you have purified water available to them is extremely important. And I can't emphasize this enough. Relationship is key. All right? You're working with the child, and a disability label does not reveal the child. And we know that These techniques can be extremely helpful, but you need to be really paying attention and relating to that child. It's also important if you don't see people yourself, but you're just helping people buy the machines, that if parents are consulting with you, and if a parent is saying they're having troubles with this, you need to be ready to problem solve with them. You know, whether it's a reinforcement system for the child, whether it's, you know, different activities right before, so they have a lot of physical activity before they lay down. You don't want to set up negative dynamics between child and parent because of the machines. There's a lot of ways to really work through that. There's another technique that I didn't mention that's not on your handouts there. Things in the hands can be very self-regulating. Our hands are set up to calm our brain. Most of us adults will figure this out. You know, if we torture you for too long and make you sit in those chairs, and if I talk monotone, you're going to be desperate for some sensory input, and you'll seek it out. And most of us will either start wiggling, or we'll find something to put in our hand. These are little squiggles. And a lot of times, all the child needs is something squishy and squeezy for their hands while they're doing these. And it just settles them right down so they're more able to fully participate. For children in the autism spectrum that perhaps are nonverbal or real struggling, things in the mouth are very calming and organizing. Now, obviously, you don't want them eating while we're doing this. So the other option is to have a chew tube or something they can chew on that's non-edible. And if it's a choice between doing it with a chew tube or not, it's so much easier to have them doing it with the chew tube. And so pay attention. If a child comes in and they constantly have their shirt in their mouth, or they're constantly having to chew on something, it's going to be your cue that most likely that child needs something in their mouth to help them be calm. And so that will help the parents, that will help any clinicians that are trying to do this with children. Families need support. Like I said before, life can be a little stressful. And so we need to be supporting and helping them problem solve. Just the other day, I called up a mom to see how things were going. And she went, "Oh, it's been really hard to get him to do the Chi machine. He won't do it. He's too busy. He's playing. He's roughhousing with his brothers. How do I do this, you know?" And we just had to talk through about, okay, why was it important for him to do it? You know, he's not sleeping right now. That's really hard. That's not good for him. It's not good for the whole family. So how about just 3 to 5 minutes, and you can put it into your schedule. It can be your special time with that special child. And that typically will just turn it right around and help them get on the right path. They may need help in knowing how to set it up, or what's the timing, what's going to work best in working it out into their schedule. And I always, always encourage the families for parents to do it as well, because it really can be a total family health kind of thing. All right. So those of us who have used the Chi machine and the Dome have seen many positive changes. And I've heard testimonies today. You know, you guys wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't really believe in these two tools. But we need to start documenting. And the testimonials are really fabulous, but the more ways that we can collect information about what's happening, the better. We need to be tracking these changes to try to support the use and the understanding of the tools. And so I have included in the handouts the questionnaire packets that I developed for the families that were coming to the clinic. And the first part, let's have that in your handouts. It's tiny. What I'll suggest to Kenny is they get the big copy, because I do have 2 here so that you can actually use it. A little hard to use it on that size, huh? The way that I used before treatment is to try to increase the awareness of the family about the different potential areas of change. Because many times parents aren't going to be aware that they could get changes academically, or that there could be better concentration, or that, oh my gosh, he's filling the toilet for the first time, okay? So that's how I use that one. And then the second one is more post-test. And so it's going to say, okay, what's been happening? Are you less constipated? Are you finding it better to concentrate? If it's for a child, then we just say, put your child's name in there. Is it easier for that child? Is their coordination better? And it's a real concrete way to start really collecting numbers so that we have a good sense about what's happening for children and how they're responding. So, the Chi machine and the far infrared dome are great tools which really do help children reach their fullest potential. On the whole scale of things, they're not that expensive for the payoff. And I know that many, many families have invested in it and they don't regret it one bit. I know that somebody would be in great danger if they tried to take my Chi and Dome away from me, I'll tell you. I love these for home program, and so I do encourage families to consider. For therapy clinics, like I've alluded, we use this at the clinic all the time and integrate it in. A child is having troubles transitioning into therapy, put them on the Chi machine, 5 minutes, all of a sudden they settle down, they're happy campers, and off we go. Or if they're having troubles transitioning out the door to mom and dad, we can do the same thing. So they're wonderful tools that support the other things that we do therapeutically. So I'm hoping that eventually more clinics that serve children will also include these as tools that they have to offer. All right. There you go.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere. Just a minute. We have actually a nice amount of time for questions and answers for Nancy. So what I'd like to ask of you, please, is if you have a question, raise your hand. I will come to you so that, because we are taping, and so let's keep this so everyone can hear the questions and the responses. I see a hand here, so one moment. And if you could stand, please.
Nancy, have you found that there's any way for insurance to cover any part of these machines for the parents or the children?
Well, they are labeled a Class 1 medical device. So some families, I think, Connie, you probably have more experience with this than I even do.
Yeah.
Because we worked with a lot of families.
What we unfortunately just found out, and I was going to announce this in a few minutes after, we just found out that the vouchers and waivers are no longer covering the devices because of the lack of research. So Nancy and I are talking a lot about that. And there again, when we get you these sheets, if you are working with children, please fill those out because they could be very valuable tools for us. And once again, opening the door for the vouchers and waivers to cover these. It's just with the economy, the cutbacks that's happening on the government levels and a lot of different programs. It's quite heartbreaking, but I'm not going to stop. One of my baby grandbabies, one of my twins, the twins, for those of you that know, was just diagnosed with cerebral palsy. So my passion is even stronger. There's a question here.
Can I also add another piece?
Sure.
I also encourage people to think outside the box. Many of your local organizations, like Kiwanis and Lions Club and Rotary Clubs, love to support families within their community. They don't always know how to do it. And a lot of times they're very willing to purchase equipment for a family. And one of the services that we do at our clinic is we have a Chi machine that families can check out for 2 weeks, try it at home, see the benefit for their child. Then they've got something concrete, so then they could go and approach these organizations and say, could you consider, this is what happened for my child. And a lot of times you'd be surprised on how willing people are to support children with special needs.
Any other questions, please? Okay. Let me go this way and then I'll be back. Excuse me, Carol. I'm winding through here. Here we go.
You say within 24 hours, usually kids who are constipated can go. How long do they have to be on the Chi machine for that to happen?
I've had it as short as 5 minutes. As short as 5 minutes.
I've had it quicker than that, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I've had a few of that too. Where
oh,
it's like
yeah, it's
3
real
minutes
quick.
and
It's real quick. And over here, it can be real quick. Yes, ma'am. If you'll stand, please.
I have two grandchildren, one 17 and one 22, who have Asperger's. Will this still help them?
Absolutely. The beauty of the brain is that the brain is plastic throughout a lifetime. We actually produce 10% new cells every year. That's billions of cells. And so if you get the right stimulus, your brain will grow. It's why, I can be 56 years old and go to a class and learn something new, and it's the beauty of the body.
Thank you.
Hi, I was wondering, do you use the Chi machine and the hot house together for your kids? Because the pictures you were showing, they were mostly like on the Chi machine alone, and I just wondered, how do you do that for these handicapped kids?
Yeah, it just depends. If you recall when I was talking about children with cerebral palsy of tight muscles, I may start with the dome because of their body tightness and then go to the Chi. There are other children that I'll use both at the same time. So it just depends on what's happening with the child and what we're trying to target and which of those machines is going to get there faster and whether, the two machines overlap in some of what they do. So both will detoxify. Both will relax the muscles. So, you do a lot of thinking through what that particular child is doing. The reason that I didn't do a lot of pictures with the dome for the presentation is then you couldn't see the postural support with the pillow, because I wanted to really put that picture in your mind as a possibility for some of these children.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A quick question. You talked about the hand calming devices, squiggles, and chew tubes. Where do you get those?
Yeah. Professional Development Programs has a catalog, and that's what I referred to. So that number is 651-439-8865. And it's kind of slick. You can buy a whole little bag of squiggles. But they have lots of different hand toys and squeeze toys that just help a child get through it.
My question is about the questionnaire in the slideshow. Is that for your clinical use, or do you offer that to anybody, the public?
Anybody could use that, just as a way of tracking what's happening with the child. That's why I'm sharing it with you.
Is it available online?
No, we're going to make copies, and it will be available today. Okay, it's just that little part was missed. His question was, where do we send them, Nancy?
Well, we'll need to talk, and maybe we can kind of figure that out. We don't have
We'll
any...
make that announcement later, too.
I don't know that this organization has research set up. But what I know, my clinic has been set up for research for years. And if you can at least start collecting data, then by the time the organization is really ready to compile it and do their little study, you'll have a lot of good information.
I just wanted to know, how old does a child need to be to get started on this equipment? And can a child as young as 1 maybe be placed on their mother's stomach and put on the Chi machine? So, so it's okay to use both of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And, it's so funny because kids are so wise. And once they experience these tools, they seek them out. And one of my therapists was sharing a story, and she said she was working with a little 2.5-year-old, and she was busy pulling out the toys. He was busy pulling the Chi machine over. And he'd even grabbed a hold of the plug-in, was looking for the plug-in. He was like, it's time, we got to do this now. But that's what happens. We all have an innate drive to feel better. And so once the children experience this and they realize that, oh, they feel a lot better, then they will start seeking it out.
Nancy, how many children have you treated with autism? And I know there are different degrees. And how soon do you see results? And then the second question is...
Well, let's just do one at a time.
All right.
That's all my brain can handle. Give me that Chi machine quick. A lot. How about that? One of my specialties is sensory processing disorders, and the clinic serves a lot of children in the autism spectrum and children that have ADHD. And like I said, we serve about 250 children in a week's time, and we've been doing this for 22 years. So we have a lot of experience with children with special needs. Like I was saying earlier, you can see almost immediate responses. with relaxation in their face, deeper breathing, and then how they are right after. Almost always you will see a residual of being in a calmer place, being able to be more open to movement, being more vocal, being more interactive. Now, every child is going to be a little different. You know, it's not a cure, you know, so it's not like, oh, you do this and you no longer have autism. That's not how it is. But you do this, and then those things build. And so that attention and focus maintains for longer periods of time, the more often you do it. The health state improves and usually maintains. You get better vocalizations and interactions, and the more they're doing it, the more skills they get. And so it helps them build. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. It even answered my second question.
Oh. Such a deal.
Okay, more questions? I'll be right in the back. Okay, excuse me. If you'll stand, please, so I can find you. I saw the hand. Here we go. Okay. Here we go.
Hi, I work in a facility for children with autism. I was wondering what the effects are on their self-stimulatory behaviors and how long after they're on the Chi machine they won't show those behaviors, or if they're just decreased.
Okay, complicated question sounds simple. What she's talking about is the self-stimulatory behaviors that children in autism sometimes do, like finger flicking, to just name one. It depends on what the root cause and the driving force of that is. Many times it's a sign that a child is very distressed. They're disorganized. And if that is the driving root of it, then doing the Chi machine in particular, a lot of times will decrease it for a period of time until they're stressed again, and then they may be reverting to it. It's not a simple answer, but it certainly can help, because what we see is regular use of the Chi over time makes for a calmer and calmer child. So what you're going to get then is longer periods of time where a child is not needing to resort to some of these other behavioral strategies to soothe themselves. Another cause of that kind of behavior, though, is biomedical problems, toxicities, troubles with gluten and casein, allergies, or a yeast problem. So if that's the core, then doing these both machines actually over time should help the body detoxify, and you should see less.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other questions over there? Okay. Getting a workout.
Oh, do you have a question? There's someone up here, too.
Oh, that's a good idea. Now can he see? And I should have said section 1 or 2. I said, well, yeah, now. If you'll stand, please. Thank you.
Hi, I have a question about, does this help children with depression or bright children that have anger management issues?
Mm-hmm. Children with depression and anger management. Those difficulties can go across the whole range of different reasons why it's happening. And certainly if there's some real core psychological issues that need to be addressed in other ways, this isn't going to be a panacea of, oh my gosh, this made a huge difference. But what I do know is children feel more comfortable in their bodies. They feel calmer. And by giving them that kind of chemistry, a lot of times increases their coping mechanisms for some of that anger. From the children a lot of the children that are coming into the clinic these days have a multitude of psychological diagnoses, from depression, oppositional defiant, you name it. They probably got it. And what we're finding is that it's very complicated, that those behaviors can be driven by misunderstanding your world. If you have sensory defensiveness in which you're not comfortable in your physical body, and every time somebody touches you, it hurts, then you're going to go into fight, flight, fright, and you're going to get into all sorts of trouble because you were standing in that line and somebody bumped you and whack. And then you get labeled as an anger management problem, So it's complicated. But I really believe that these techniques can at least decrease that stress chemistry that's going on with the child, so then the other tools that you have to support them can be very helpful. You know, we're very complicated human beings, aren't we? But what I do know is that if we can help ourselves get into a calmer state, then we're much more responsive to the other things that are available to us to help with our health state and our learning and our functioning.
My husband and I have a 31-year-old who has ADHD, and he's had some problem with writing disability in the past, but that seems to be okay. But he's got what I call a pretty severe math disability, and someone was saying, we'll give him a calculator. But guess what? Remember all those story problems you had in class? Well, life is like one gigantic story problem after each other, and if you don't know how to do that, and he doesn't really realize when he doesn't know how to do that, and now he's moved outside of our house, but hasn't changed his address, and so we're still getting a lot of financial stuff. And I'm really kind of afraid to give it to him because he wouldn't know what to do with it. And do you have can some of this stuff still work for adults? And do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, it does work with adults. You know, it's more complicated with learning processes. Like I said, you know, there have been some reports of kids making fast acceleration in their reading skills and their math skills, but it depends, I think, on what the root cause of that issue is. It's not going to hurt to try and to see. At the very least, it's going to help with the attention and focus. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I think there were some up here.
Up front? Okay. I'm coming.
Those I'll share.
Excuse me. Oh, Lil has a question. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. I just wonder if you're using the ERE on these children when because certainly many of them have parasites. They all have animals.
Yeah. What?
Well, I haven't, I guess, because they can't communicate to you the intensity that they're feeling.
Yeah.
So, yes, they do have the parasites, Lil, and you're right. I'll be talking about that in a bit, but hold them on your lap. You know, that's the way to remedy that situation. Any age. Any age. You can hold them on your lap, you can color, you can read. It's something you can just sit at the kitchen table and put the ERE under the table and just hold them on your lap. Yep.
Yeah.
I knew someone was going to ask that question. Thank you.